Hello and welcome back. So this is our second part of our video here. We're just going to set up our non-player character in this video. So we have a few little things to do. So we'll just stay on level 1 here. So we're going to open up our FBX file and we've got our non-player character here. And we just need a little bit of setting up on this character. So there it is there. If we press let's have a look. Let's go to animation and we can press play and it's playing all of the characters, 3 different animations. So let's work on that. So the first 60 frames, I think, are its walk cycle. So let's set that up here. So it's just got one big long single clip on it at the moment. So if we open up here, you can see that it's got one animation called Troll Rig Troll. So let's change that. So let's rename this. We'll call this walk. And the walk's going to end on frame 59. Now, not 60 because it counts from 0. We'll say loop because it's a walk, and we can play that, and that looks right. And then we're going to add in another animation, and we're going to call this one attack, and we'll start that one at 70 and we'll make it go to 100 and we'll play that, and that looks correct. And then we'll have one more. We'll call this idle, and we'll make this go from 100 to the end to 310. So we'll just press play there. And this one's going to loop as well. Okay, so that looks right. So we have our 3 animations now. So we've got our attack, and we've got our walk and our idle. So we have to apply these to the FBX, and then you'll see that this has disappeared, and we've got our 3 animations here. And what we can see here in the FBX is these are the kind of components. These are the positioning, the position of the troll rig, the position of the troll mesh. You can see it's skinned. It's the actual mesh items, the mesh of the troll and the mesh of its eyes. They're 2 separate objects, and then the rest are its animations. Okay, so now there's other things that we can do with the model here, but we're just going to leave them as they are. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to drag and drop our troll into our scene, and he's a bit big, so let's look from the side here and position him down, and we're going to give him a scale of say 0.5. Oops, 0.5, and he looks about right. I don't know if he'll fit in our corridor, but we'll see what we can do. And we'll move the troll that way, and we'll turn him, we'll turn him that way, and we've put him in the wrong side, so we'll move him back to the other side of the bridge. Okay, so this is our troll. We'll place him here. Now we need to give the troll some sort of physics, some sort of collision. So we'll say the troll has a capsule collider, and that is there. And you can see here it's a little kind of green sphere. So I'm just going to take my world here, and I'm just going to turn it off for a bit. I'm going to take my cave walls and turn them off, and then just have a look here at my character. So here he is, and that's his capsule collider. So let's just move that up about halfway up, and we need to move it on X a little bit, there, and then we want to make the radius of it bigger, and we want to make the height of it little bit more, and then we can change its position on Y. So about there. So it's meant to sort of encapsulate him, and we've moved it all the way over there on Z. Why did it do that? Or did I do that? I did that. There we go. So that should be 0. Okay. And yeah, maybe we can move it slightly forward. Alright, that's the actual character. So on Z here. There we go. Okay, so that's the kind of collision bounds for our character. If we're going to shoot it or hit it, if we kind of get within this capsule here, this green capsule, then we'll have collision. It'll also be the collision that is determined by whether or not the character can walk through, you know, a gap between the pillars, etc. And we may end up having to make it smaller and the mesh smaller. Okay, so that's our first thing. So we've given it some collision. And then the next thing we can do is we can give it a rigid body, which will give it some physics. Now, on the physics, we're going to try and stop it from rolling forward or back. So we're going to freeze it on Z in terms of rotation, so it can't fall over. So we'll press play there, and we can see it's fallen to the ground. Now we can't move all the way over to it because we've made our ground disappear, so we'll turn that back on. And we'll leave the pillars off for now. We'll work our way through. And you can see we can knock him over because he has physics. And we can push him around. Okay. And also, even though we can't see them, there are invisible collision walls there for the pillars. Okay, so that's our non-player character in our game. Okay, so let's move on a little bit further and control the non-player character a little bit more. So the non-player character has animations, but at the moment we can't control those animations. So let's see if we can work on that. So to do that, we need some sort of control mechanism. So I'm going to make a new folder called animation, and then inside that folder I'm going to create what's called an animator controller. Now the animator controller is for the troll, and in your game you may have multiple non-player characters, so it's important that you label these correctly. And when I double click on this, I get this interface here. This is the animator controller, and what I want to do is I want to put my animations in here and set up the relationship between them. So I'm going to go back to my FBX folder, and I'm going to take the one I drag in first will be orange in color, and it will be the first thing that is played. Now I can always change it. You can right click and go set layer as to default, but easier to start the right way. So there's my attack, and there's my walk. Now we're just going to have a very quick look. I'm going to press play, and you should see, if you can, that the character, we'll click there, is playing his idle cycle. So flight, select the non-player character 2. So oh no, he's not. He's not playing his idle cycle, and the reason he's not is because we haven't associated this animator controller with this non-player character. So you can see here it says controller none. So I'm going to drag and drop that over there, and now when I press play, we're going to hit escape here, and you can see it here, hit the idle cycle playing and the animation playing there slowly. Now keep in mind the collision capsule that is around the troll is not moving at all, it's just the troll. Okay, or it's just the mesh. So let's take this light here move it forward so we can see the troll a bit better. Okay, so that's our troll there, and it's got its first animation. So let's set up the relationship between these. So the first thing we need to do is create what's called a parameter, and we're going to set up a couple of Boolean parameters. So kind of, you know, true, false. Now Boolean's normally a bit more complicated than that, but in this instance it's just going to be on or off. So we're going to say walk, and we're going to say we'll make another one, and this one will be called attack. Now how I spell these is very important because I'm going to have to reference to them in code. So now I'm going to make a transition that goes from idle to walk and to attack, and over here we get to set the condition under which this will work. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say when walk is true, go to walk, and I'm going to say turn off this thing here, has exit time, and here I'm going to say when attack is true, go to attack, and again turn off the exit time. Now with attack we want to be able to go from attacking to walking, so we'll click on this and we can say when walk is true. I'm going to leave has exit time on because that'll just mean the animation will play to its end, and I don't want it to stop halfway through. And then we have to figure out how we get back to the idle cycle. So I'm going to make 2 more transitions to go back. So this one here, again, I'm going to turn off has exit time, and I'm going to say when walk is false and when attack is false. When both of them are false, go back to idle. And I'm going to have the same one here. So turn off has exit time, add 2 in. So when walk is false and when attack is also false. So when they're both false, go back to the idle cycle. So that is basically our setup. Now we should be able to go from walk to attack as well. So again, that will be when attack is true, it'll transition. So that's it set up. Now you can imagine if you had 10 or 12 or 15 different animations, this can get quite complicated, and there are ways to simplify it, and you can make what's called a state machine and have the character enter different states, but this is kind of a good example of transitioning between 3 different animations. So let's just see it in action. I'm going to press play here, and I'm going to hit escape and click up here. So now idle is playing, and we can see the character, the troll, animating down here. So I'm going to make walk true and see what happens. So now walk is happening. Now I'm going to make walk false, so both of them are now false, so it's gone back to idle, and I'm going to make attack true. And now it only attacks once, and that's because when we set up the character over here, I didn't say attack could be looped, so we'll turn that on and then we'll hit apply. Okay, so you could see it working there. So that's the kind of the animation setup and the animation controller setup. So now we just need to have some input, like a piece of code to make a script to determine when this character will do those actions. So let's, under scripts here, we have made 2 scripts. So I'm going to make another new script. I'm going to call this one NPC, so non-player character, troll. And we're going to use this to control our troll. Okay, so we have this open now, so let's have a look at how we will get this script to work. So we have a few things to do. The first thing we're going to do is we are going to bring in our animator. So we're going to say that we have a public So it's an animator. So public animator, and we'll call this troll control. So we can call it anything we want, and we have to put a semicolon at the end. And then we need to put in a transform. So we're going to say public transform, and we'll call this target. And what else we need? We want to put in well, actually, let's just work with them for a minute, and we can go back and add stuff in. So what we want to be able to do is, under certain circumstances, figure out where the player is in regard to the troll, and if the player gets close enough, we want the troll to attack it. Okay, so that's what we want. So let's see if we can kind of code for that. So when you're working out distance, so we'll put in another variable here. So we'll go public float cast small f public float, and we'll call this dis for distance. So down here, and we'll just delete start for a moment. So down here we want to be able to work out the distance between the character and the troll. And how we do that is we say distance equals, and we've said it's a float, so it's a decimal. So it's going to equal the distance between, it's a vector 3 dot distance, and with a capital D. So it's a vector 3 dot distance, and then we have to give it the 2 points that we're measuring between. So we're going to say the target's position. In this case, the target's going to be the player. So target dot position, and then so it's like drawing a line. It's like the starting point and the end point, and the end point is going to be the position of the troll. So how we write that is we say transform that position. Okay. So that's that done. So we have this distance now. This is the distance between the character and the troll. So we need to do something with that now. So let's put in another variable. So we'll call this public float. We'll call it range. So now we're going to say if the distance is smaller than the range. And then we need to open our curly brackets because we're going to tell it to do something. And now let's set the range up here. So we can say public float range equals, I don't know, 5. Okay, so because it's a float, it's a decimal, we put in the .0, and F stands for float. And we've that twice. So now we can put any number we want in here. And in Unity, this will be exposed in the inspector, so we can type. We don't have to go back to the script to change it. So we're saying, so distance equals, or dis equals the distance between the target and the troll. And we're saying that if the distance is bigger than, actually it should be smaller than, so if the distance is smaller than, maybe we'll say equal to or smaller than the range, then we want to do something. And what do we want to do? Well, we want to play the attack animation. So the way we do that is we say, so we've declared this up here, so we can say, so troll control dot set bool, because it's a bool that we want to set, and we're going to put our the one we want to set in here. So we have to remember what we called it. So it's attack. So it's attack, and we want to set that to be true. We want to put that in there. So oh, I haven't put in my second one of them. There we go. And that shouldn't be there. There we go. So I did that wrong. So troll control.setBool attack is true. Now this is not going to give us any collision or scoring or health or but it'll work for us here. So we're just going to save that. So we're going to go File, Save All, and then we'll jump back into Unity. And if we have a problem, it will give us a big red message here saying compiler error. So it doesn't seem to be giving us a compiler error. So let's take our the control script and put it onto our player here. And you can see, we'll just close up what's the default stuff. We have all of our variables here. So if we go back to the script, you can see that we've got a variable for, these are all public, so they're all visible now in Unity. So the animator, the target, we have this number, the distance, and we have the range. So back in Unity, it's looking for, well, troll control, where's the animator? And the easiest way to get that is to click on this little circle here, and we can select it here, so it's the non-player character. And what is our target? Well, our target is our player, which is this guy at the moment. And then the distance, well, we don't need to put in the distance. The distance will be worked out for us. In fact, we don't really need that to be public, so we wouldn't normally make that visible, but we'll leave it visible for now so you can see. And then the range is 5. Again, I can retype that if I want. So let's go see if we can make this work. So we're going to press play, and we're just going to move forward a bit and observe that the troll is playing its idle cycle. And then we're going to see now we're within a range of 5, and it's playing the attack cycle. Now we've moved out like quite far away, and it's still trying to attack. So let's see if we can go back to the script and address that behavior. So here we go here. So if the distance is smaller than the range, so we can just take that there, Control C. I can add in, do the same thing again, only we can say if the distance is bigger than the range, then set this to be false. And then if you remember what we put in, we have to put walk false as well. Now that means that we've got these two numbers here, that it's kind of got a range, and so it's either inside or outside the range. But maybe we want it to have a more kind of complex behavior. Maybe we want it to have kind of two ranges. So we want a walk range and an attack range. So let's do that. So let's duplicate this, Control C and Control V, and we'll call this attack range. Now down here, these numbers or these words don't mean anything now because there's nothing to reference. So we're going to say the attack range is 3. So I'm going to Control C and put that there. But we have walk range as well. So we'll put that in there. So if the distance is bigger than the walk range, then it should resort to its idle cycle. Let's put something else in here as well. So Control C, Control V. So we want one more sort of distance. So we want to be have a range here, say of 10 maybe, or let's say 8. So if I'm within 3, if I'm very close, he'll attack. But if I get within 8, he's going to walk towards me. So I'll say if distance is smaller than the walk range and it's bigger than, so and we have to write it again, and distance is bigger than the attack range. So if these two things are true, then walk should be set to true. So if the distance is smaller, so if we're within 3, attack. If we're bigger than 3 but smaller than 8, walk. and then if we're bigger than walk range, then idle. So hopefully that makes sense to you. So there's sort of three parts to this. So we'll jump back into Unity, see if we get any compile errors, and we don't. And let's press play. So he's idling away. And now I'm within a range of 8. Now I'm within a range of 3. And you can see here we've got a slight problem, that there's, when I retreat from the troll, there's a moment, if I just stop that there, now I jump back to the script. So there's a moment when I retreat when both of these are true. So I've got smaller than attack range and bigger than this. So and you could see it was trying to play both the attack and the walk at the same time. So let's have a think about that. So if the distance is smaller than the attack range, attack. If the distance is smaller than walk but bigger than that, then walk is true. Yeah, that should walk, or that should walk. That should work. Maybe we'll have a look at that again. But we can basically see that it's a kind of a simple setup to kind of give you to fake some sort of behavioral change in the troll, in the non-player character. So we've given them sort of 3 inputs based on this one line of code here, which is working out distance. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is actually make the troll at this point here, when it's walking, we want it to actually move. So let's have a look at how we would go about doing that. So let's have see what we can put in here. So there's a function built into Unity called lookat, and we want so that's important. We want to be able to get the troll to turn and face the character, and maybe what we'll do is we'll position the troll kind of half or side on to the character initially, and we'll do that in a moment. So how we get the troll to look, so if this is correct here, we will say, so transform, so which is to kind of to move, so transform dot look at, and then we need to tell it what to look at, and we've already put that variable in. It's our target. So now once this is correct, once this is true, we'll get it to look at the target. Now we also want it to do that up here, so there's no point in it attacking us if we're standing at the side of it. So we want it to transform and look at the character. And then the last thing we want it to do is we want it to move. Now there's loads of different ways to get a character to move in Unity, and we've given our character a rigid body, so we could use add force. So but we'll probably take that rigid body off, and we're just going to do a simple way for now, and then we'll worry about forces a little bit later on. So to make it move in a very simple way, we can just go, so transform, which is the move, dot translate, that one, and we want to give it a new vector 3. So vector 3, and we have to say in what direction. So we're going to say forward. And when we use lookat, it's going to turn, so its positive z value is going to be pointed towards the character. So forward, when we say move forward, it'll be moving forward in that direction. And then we need to, not a comment, so we need to multiply that by speed, which we haven't put in yet, and by time. So time dot delta time, and time dot delta time is basically keeps the character it kind of regulates the speed of the character. Otherwise, so updates done on every frame. So if I had a computer that ran at 1,000 frames a second, then it would multiply these two numbers 1,000 times a second, and the troll would be extraordinarily fast. Or if I had a machine that ran at 5 frames a second, it would calculate it that many times, etc. So time.delta time actually ties the speed of the character to the clock in the computer, so that if you have a fast machine and I have a slow machine, you don't have a different experience to me. Speed, though, we haven't defined yet, so let's put that in. So we'll put that in here. So we'll go so public float speed equals, I know, we'll say equals 2. Okay, so he's not a fast troll. Now what we probably want is we'll need to change this number so that it corresponds with the speed of his walk cycle. So we'll probably tweak that in a bit. So we'll save all this, and then we'll go back into Unity and see if we get any errors. And we have no errors. This is good. And then we will press play and see if this works. So we should be able to walk to here, and now he's moving towards us, and then he starts to attack, and he is ominously coming towards us, and we can't get away. Okay, so this is progress, but you can see his speed is far too much. So we'll say we'll give him a speed of say 0.5, so he's much slower. And now we'll try it again. So now he's moving towards us, and now he falls over. Hooray! Alright, and that's why we need to probably take the rigid body off. And now, normally, you know, we'll come back and we'll discuss that again, rigid bodies, etc. But so now he's moving towards us, and you know, so now he's stuck. So we'll probably just have to make him a little bit smaller. But also, I think he's back to playing his idle cycle. Yeah, okay. So we'll make him a tiny bit smaller, our non-play character. So he's 0.5, so we'll make him say 0.3. He's going to be less intimidating, but that's okay. That way he can move through our little world a little more more easily. Now he's far less intimidating when he's that big, and he's also floating, so I need to fix that too. Okay, so the rigid body is very good for making sure he adheres to the ground, because he'll always follow, you know, the path of he'll always follow the ground. But it's not the best in the world for there's other kind of problems with it. Also, what we're using the look at function is not great either. The look at function is, so if we look at our character here, if we were to look at the side, it doesn't just rotate the character on the y-axis. It'll kind of make him kind of pitch up a little bit, because he's trying to look not just straight at us, but he's trying to look at the center of our player. So if we're taller than him, he'll lean backwards, which is why when we saw him there, he had leaned backwards to look in our center, and then as he moved forward, that meant he was moving off the ground. So, you know, there's quite a few little considerations to have when we make all of these things, and the pluses and minuses. So having a rigid body on him is excellent, but like I said, it has its own problems. So we'll add it back in, but we'll make it a bit smaller. So let's turn off our cave walls, and we'll look from the side, and we'll turn off our pillar collision and our pillars, and we'll select this guy here and his capsule collider, and that just looks perfect as it is there. Okay, So we are 35 minutes in, so we might just leave it there. But it kind of gives you an idea of how to set up the non-player character's behavior. Now we still haven't done it actually hitting us and us taking damage, or us hitting it and giving it damage, and we haven't put in our FPS rig, so we've still quite a bit to do, and we haven't done any head-up displays and stuff yet, but we'll get there. We'll get to all of those things. So so here we are. Our character's he's gonna move towards us, and we can move out of range, and he can fall over back to his idle cycle, and we can have a little work on stopping him doing that. Let's see, where is his rigid body? So freeze rotation on Z. Let's see if that helps. And whoa, run away! And he has fallen backwards again and he rolled over. Very good. So I may have to freeze his rotation on more than that, or we can come up with we can put him in a box collider or something. He doesn't have to be in a capsule. Maybe we'll try that. We will put him in a box collider, and we can, in the same way that we did with the capsule collider, we can change the size of it to suit the character, and we want to change its X position, nope, Z position, and that'll do for now. So we'll press play and see if this is a better solution. So he's moving forward, and then we move away from him, and you can still see he's struggling to stay upright using this sort of collision system. And when we had the rigid body off him, he didn't trip and fall. So like I said, there's pros and cons to using these systems, but we'll get there. So we'll leave the setup at that for now, and then when we come back into the next video, we'll be setting up the player and health and hitting, etc., and we'll add on to that then.